To you. Thank you.
Great, thank you, and thanks everybody for coming. So as Holger suggested, I'm presenting on behalf of Arindam Day. The other authors are Chen, Chang, Zhuang, and Rob Lindeman in the lime green in the third row. So we all know how immersive virtual reality is. This is a talk about virtual reality, and Chris Milk famously said that virtual reality is the ultimate empathy machine because it can immerse you into foreign spaces. And his company Within has done a number of impressive demonstrations, such as the clouds over Sidra, where you put a VR headset on and you go and visit a refugee camp in Sidra and see things like this. In our research, Noni De La Pina said that virtual reality offers a whole different medium to sell stories that really connect people and create an empathic connection. So we're really interested in how we can use virtual reality not to create a sense of emotion for yourself, but to share that with somebody else. And so the research focus for this research is about how we can use a shared heartbeat in real time with another person and how that might affect social presence, emotional effect, and real heart rate signals. So if you're in VR with somebody else and you can hear the other person's heartbeat, does that make you feel more connected to that person and create an emotional connection with them? So there's been some interesting background related work. 3 years ago, Feldenhofer did some work showing how that virtual environments can cause emotional change. He put people in the same virtual environment and then changed the lighting conditions and the weather conditions, and people felt scared or happy or different effects. Tan, 4 years ago, did a very interesting experiment where they had remote people collaborating and shared physiological cues, heart rate and GSR, and people felt a higher sense of co-presence when they could see the person's heart rate. We've done some work ourselves on how you can have different types of VR environments that create a higher positive effect. We've also done some work on looking at providing an audio haptic cue for the heartbeat, so not only do you hear the heart, but you can feel vibration. And we've also looked at manipulating the feedback, so what happens when the person you're hearing the heartbeat from has a normal heart rate, but you speed it up, and so you make it sound like their heartbeat is faster. So all of this related work, people in most cases experience their own heart rate, and the task in the VR case was just to explore the environment, and there was no interaction between the people. And in most cases, they only received audio-visual feedback, except for our earlier work with the haptic. So with this paper, we're looking at what effect does multisensory physiological heart rate feedback have in different types of collaborative situations, different types of collaborative VR situations. So the novelty of this work is that we're one of the first to systematically measure the effects of sharing heart rate feedback in different types of collaborative VR environments, and also with different relationships between the people. If you're both in the environment doing the same task, or if you're in an environment with somebody else who's telling you what to do, in more of a student-novice relationship. So for the paper, we did an experiment with 3 different environments. The first environment was both people were in an escape room and they had to solve a puzzle together, so both people had an equal role. The second environment, we put you into the African outback, and you weren't able to interact with the other person. You couldn't talk to them, you just explored by yourself, but you were aware they were there. And the third environment, you were in the environment and you had somebody else in the environment who was telling you how to move furniture around. So this is more like a teacher-student relationship. In each of these environments, both people were represented by this mannequin, a virtual mannequin head. So this is a within-subject study across the environment conditions. And then we had a second factor, which was the audio haptic feedback. And so in one case, when you're in the environment, you could hear the heartbeat of the person with you, and you could feel the Vive controller vibrate in time with the heartbeat. And in the second case, you couldn't hear the heartbeat or feel the vibration. So to show what that's like, this is the first case, and I don't know if you can hear that, but that's the heartbeat, and there's some vibration happening. And this is the furniture arranging condition. We're looking around, they can see furniture. And then this is the second case, not as exciting, so there's no sound, and you can just see the person there as well. So this is a between subjects factor, so half the people had the heartbeat and the vibration on, and half didn't. So here's the experiment setup. We had an experimenter and a collaborator in the same room. They used a Vive controller, they had headphones on, a Vive headset display. There were 18 participants, not many women unfortunately, 9 in each group, and they were middle-aged or approaching middle age, I guess. So here's the various measures we measured. We had a number of qualitative measures, so we used a social presence questionnaire. This is a well-established questionnaire for people measuring their sense of co-presence or the perceived message, so perceived connection with a remote person. We also had the PANAS scale, which measures how positive and negative affect you're feeling. The self-assessment mannequin, which is used to measure valence and arousal, and this measures emotion cues. And we asked some additional questions. And then we also measured the heart rate of the people and also the breathing rate as well. So the hypothesis was that if you could hear the heart rate of somebody else, then you would feel increased social presence. You'd feel more connected to them, and you'd also feel a higher perceived inclusion of other and self. This is a scale that measures how close you feel to the other person and if they're part of your space or not. You'd also have a higher positive effect and a higher ratio of positive to negative, and then increased arousal and dominance. And as I said, the African environment was an exploration environment where you didn't interact with the other person, whereas the other two you did. So in that case, we felt that you should be measuring a lot less social presence because you weren't talking to the other person and collaborating with them. So here's our results. So as I said, you can see the three bars there for each of the audio or heart rate conditions. The green bar is the African exploration, and in all cases that scored lower, showing that indeed you felt a lot less social presence. There was a significant difference, a significant effective environment on social presence. This is the co-presence score, the perceived message understanding and perceived behavioural independence. The PANAS scale, which measures your affect. Again, the exploration condition was ranked significantly lower, so people felt less positive about that than in the furniture ranging condition. Also, with the heart rate, when the heart rate was turned on, people felt a lot less negative than when it was off, and the ratio was also significantly different. The inclusion of self and other, this is the measure of how connected you feel to the other person. And similarly to the social presence, the exploration condition was ranked significantly lower. This is on a scale of 1 to 5, so you can see with the heart rate on and off, in both cases the exploration is ranked much lower than the other two conditions. And the effect mannequin case, in this case there was a significant effect of environment again on the valence and the arousal. So the furniture case, people felt the most excited and aroused. Then we asked some subjective questions, how much you could perceive the presence of the other person, how much you felt you could understand the emotional state of the other person, and how much you felt the collaborator helped you. In both of these cases, people felt they could perceive the person better with the heart rate turned on, and they felt closer emotionally to them. And then in terms of the collaboration helping, the furniture condition ranked significantly higher than exploration, which isn't surprising because in the exploration condition you didn't have any interaction at all. We also measured the effect of heart rate on the other person, and we found that there was a significant difference in the furniture versus exploration case. So again, when you're collaborating with a person, if I hear your heart rate goes up, it also made my heart rate go up. So you can see here the beats per minute compared to the other the furniture case. So that's a lot of data, and you can read the paper for more details. The take-home message is that if you have a heart rate on in your VR environment and it allows you to listen to the heartbeat of somebody else, even, of course the advantage of that is that even if you can't see the person, you're still aware of them because you can hear their heart rate, and if the heart rate gets more excited, you can hear it going up and so forth. So this will increase social presence, and it increases the sense of inclusion of other and self, so the sense of awareness you have of the other person. It also creates higher positive effects, the positive feelings, and it increases the arousal and sense of dominance. We also, with the second hypothesis, we did find indeed that this exploration environment caused a lot less social presence because we weren't doing a task together even though we're in the same environment. So if you're building VR environments, what this means is that if you want to create a strong sense of presence between the people in the environment, then you can, if you provide heart rate, that will create an increased feeling that the collaborator's presence is important. You can also use it to encourage communication and interaction to increase social presence and empathy. So this is the first of a longer series of research, and what we'd like to do is extend it in a couple of ways. So first of all, we'd like to look at the effect of task load, so that the conditions or the tasks we had people do in this case were fairly simple. So what happens when the person is doing a task that involves a lot of cognitive processing or has a lot of mental ability, or task load on their mental ability? So is that going to affect their physiological feedback? There's other cues you could share as well. In this experiment, we shared the heart rate and we also measured the respiration. We found that there was no significant difference in respiration as the heart rate changed, unlike the heart rate. But we could also share the GSR, so the sweating with the other person, and also the breathing rate. So maybe if you can hear the person breathing as well as aware of their sweat, which is their stress level, that might create a strong sense of co-presence as well. And there's a lot that can be done in terms of exploring the feedback visualizations. In our case, we had a simple visualization where you could just hear the heartbeat and you could feel the vibration. But of course you could do other things as well, so you could have a pulsing heart icon on the screen, and if you're showing stress or respiration, you could have a wide range of ways to show that too. So thank you very, very much. This is, as I said, this is Arindam Day's work. He's just left our lab to go to the University of Queensland, so I'm happy to answer some questions, but I'm sure will answer a lot more over email. And he told me to tell you that he's got some fully funded PhD positions available in sunny Queensland. So if you want to go to Australia, please contact him. He'll give you money and you can study with him and do this type of research. So thank you very much.
Same as with Rob. If you don't want me to ask the questions now. I start with one. Have you, it's a technical one, so the audio haptic feedback, was that the acoustic side or the vibrotactile side spatialized in any form, or was it just the controller vibrated and the sound was ambient?
No, it wasn't spatialized. That's something we could do. So we just heard the heartbeat in our ears all the time. Doesn't matter where the other person was relative to us. It was always just in our hand. Yeah. So that's something we could change.
Yeah, yeah. But it did not change when I came nearer to the other person.
No,
not yet.
No,
yeah, okay. Thank you. And yeah, there's a question on there.
Hi, good presentation. Thank you. The heart rate is a very repetitive sound, right?
Yes.
So my question is, did you find some users just stop paying attention to the sound after a few minutes?
People didn't tell us that. In our experiment, it was quite a short period of time. So I can't remember exactly, but most conditions were about 4 minutes or so. So I think because it's so short, you will not lose attention. And also, the tasks themselves were not that, didn't require that much concentration. For example, if you have a task where you're, fighting in a tank simulator, then of course you're very focused on whatever, and you might lose attention to the heart rate. But in our case, it was a very simple task and a very short task. But that would be good to explore for the future, definitely. That's a good.
Thank you very much.
Good question. Oh, good.
So did you distinguish between the general feeling of social presence and co-presence, or was it for you was one measure?
It was, because we used the impact of other on self, that's a co-presence measure, and then we had a social presence separate survey. But we didn't, from the survey, we didn't split out the separate. So we could probably do more on the surveys as well.
Okay, let's thank Mark again, please.
Great, thank you very much.